It is 2018. Maimai has just gotten its finale update. What's Maimai, you might ask? Maimai is one of Sega's star arcade rhythm games played on a giant washing machine. You tap, hold, and slide your hands across a circular touchscreen and surrounding physical buttons to the beat of the music. Guys, wait, you're not supposed to do it like that. And this finale update introduces some well sought after additions to the game. Finale cores, a new music folder, and 5 days later, if you met certain conditions and you achieved a certain rank on all charts that set, you'll be met with the largest Maimai event to date. Finale introduced Pandora Box instead of the perfect challenges that introduced boss songs in the subsequent versions, which introduced 6 new challenging masters. This powerhouse included Kuzikaga Requiem, Schwarzschild, Ally Acta Est, FFT, Raikiri, and The Emperor, which released one by one over the following months. Upon completing a set of prerequisites and achieving a minimum rank throughout your set, you could challenge one of the 6 Pandora Box Masters on your final track, earning you the emblem for that song. And upon collecting all 6 emblems, you could challenge the Kuzya's Pandora Paradox, one of the most grueling and physically demanding masters the game had to offer so far. On May 15th, 2019, 5 months after the release of Pandora Box, Yoshi would be Pandora Paradox's first victor, completing the song in just 10 lives. And that was Pandora Box, if it wasn't for the remasters. Upon completing Pandora Paradox Master, you could now collect the remaster emblems for each of the 6 songs after achieving above SSS each set, introducing an onslaught of the hardest charts the game had to offer. Infamously, this list included Kuzikaga Requiem Remaster, Schwarzschild Remaster, and The Emperor Remaster, which to this day stands as formidable charts. On the 1st of June 2019, Yoshi would again be the first to clear Pandora Paradox in just 50 lives. After clearing Pandora Box, the player was given a bonus track, Believe the Rainbow. Which is apparently harder than Pandora Paradox Remaster. Do you remember the story of Pandora's Box? Upon lifting the lid, a swarm of afflictions escaped into the world. Disease, old age, envy, labor, grief, and death. However, left at the bottom of the box, the only remaining presence was hope. And that hope would be the precursor to one of the greatest demonstrations of sheer will, drive, and determination of rhythm gamers. In 2019, the original era of maimai was retired, moving the players into a new world with the release of maimai DX. The introduction of the new version was the biggest overhaul of the game to date. Deluxe charts, freedom mode, gameplay UI customization, DX score, and Chihos. Chihos, area or map, have been the primary unlock system since maimai Deluxe, allowing players to unlock limited time songs, cosmetics, and tour members. The in-universe explanation for this phenomenon is that the player travels through these Chihos with their tour members. Good tour members allow you to travel faster as they are residents of the Chiho that are helping you navigate these areas. maimai DX introduced the 6 main Chihos: Beginning, Metropolis, Dragon, Black Rose, Heaven, and Youth. Nearly every original maimai release was directly related to the story or universe of one of these Chihos, up until Universe, which introduced 7's ref. Seven's Ref, short for Seven's Refractions, is the world that everything is set in. It is home to 7 gates, 6 of which are traditional gates that the Wanderers can pass through. The final 7th being a forbidden gate that hasn't been opened ever since the conception of Seven's Ref. It is home to the Tower of Eternity, Riss Acid, and Riss's fragmented clones, essentially serving as a hub world for the entire maimai universe. Players who travel through Chihos through the 6 gates return with fragments, which help form the Tower of Eternity, a structure responsible for keeping Seven's Ref intact. Riss is the primary guardian of Seven's Ref, who, with the assistance of 6 gatekeepers, watches over the Wanderers as they travel to and from the gates collecting fragments. Since then, Seven's Ref's story has been about the history, management, and protection of the maimai universe, notably Gravekeeper and Jews of Egmoy documenting the formation of Riss's other souls, Tricktier and Straight Into the Lights outlining Seven's Ref history, and interpersonal conflict between the characters, like in Worlds and Loneliness, Metamorphosism, and Redemption. That is, up until the release of PRiSM. On the day of PRiSM's release, the maimai account announced its KALEID SCOPE, an alternative game mode that allows players to unlock special boss songs. For each of the 6 original maimai areas released in maimai PRiSM and PRiSM Plus, a locked gate can be obtained at the end of each area. Upon obtaining a gate for the first time, in this case, the blue gate, the KALEID SCOPE game mode appears on a mode select screen. However, a locked gate needs a key to open, and each key can be obtained by fulfilling a specific set of requirements. And what's the requirement for the blue door? Play all 29 songs of the youth area up until Sky Street 6 at least once. Upon unlocking the gate and key, the gate can be challenged in the KALEID SCOPE game mode. The rules for each gate are simple. The player is given a limited amount of life to complete a 3-track course. Every time the player hits a non-perfect judgment, their life decreases by 1. The credit ends instantly upon running out of life. Tracks are picked from a pool of songs that are released under the Chiho the door is associated with. The first track is a random song from that area, and the second track is a random perfect challenge from that area. The final track is a new song composed by a past composer for that area, which is unlocked upon completion. In Japan, KALEID SCOPE uses the same life system as its perfect challenges, which means that you get 1 life to clear the entire 3-course track. That includes the track that has never been seen before. The requirements are only reduced upon anyone clearing the required difficulty. That means, if nobody is able to complete the course in 1 life, the requirement persists until it is cleared. And with that out of the way, the blue gate brings upon the very first challenge of KALEID SCOPE. Brand New Sky, composed by Taku1175, is not a very interesting chart. Being the only chart easier than a 14 in the entire event, it does not demonstrate anything that players haven't seen or witnessed before. In fact, the perfect challenge that unlocked the gate was harder than this chart, being a 14.1. However, for any player who happened to be following the youth law, which might just be me, Brand New Sky and 184 billion multitonics suggests a rejection of the magic system that has governed the inauthenticity of success in their universe. However, the same cannot be said about the next gate. After equipping the Latent Kingdom player frame and completing a credit consisting of only Canon Oguni songs, you unlock the key for the White Gate. Commonly referred to as IS-135, features some of the most aggressive slide patterns in an eye-watering amount of breaks, and some of the most disgusting break placements in the game. Its spins and slide density make it a true stamina and technical check, even for the leaders of the Kaleidoscope effort so far. Whilst Bluegate had 32 one-life players on launch, Whitegate only had 3 from Amtaro, Non-RJ, and Tentaro, standing as one of the hardest challenges of the 6 games.
Am I the first? Can I go home now? I can go home now. Oh.
Upon the release of Black Rose 10 Chiho, the instrumental section of maimai's Black Rose website was updated to include an audio file consisting of a telegraph key transmitting Morse code which translates the change spec to factor. Following the URL from Konoha Special to Factorial led to a site with a short message and a graphic containing a card with the Roman numeral XXI, thus giving the solution of 21 Factorial, which was to be entered as a serial code in maimai DXNet. Ariake is a violently technical chart featuring nearly every awkward formation of notes in the game, and while it's not intensely difficult as a 14.4, its aggressive use of slides and touch notes left a lot of players winded before a pure skill check ending.
ロイヤルブレッド選手 VS ヨシキ選手、参りましょう。決勝第3トラックです。せーの、3、2、1、スタート。
King of Performance came out swinging, revealing the 4th Kaleidoscope song as the final for the Japan division, and what a final it is. Playing every final qualification song featured in past KOP tournaments granted you the key for Blackgate, featuring Chunin as its final boss song. And to put it simply, as said by T Pazolite, since Urusasetsu was a fairly kingly collaboration, I did a fairly evil one this time. And what an evil chart this is. If you thought 125 BPM would have made this easier, it's the driver of the chart's delayed slides which add another layer of technical complexity above the pure power check that this monster offers. There is an utter revolting speed to every Jack and Trill in this very Jack and Trill heavy chart, and it stands in time as the 2nd hardest KOP chart in the game's history. On the 13th of March, this image was posted to the official maimai line channel, featuring a mascot holding the yellow key with the dialogue, "If you're unsure, just leave it to me." The same dialogue is shown on the icon for the random song selection feature, and thus playing any of the maimai version's theme songs when it is selected by the random song selection feature grants you the yellow key. Antinome is a precision powerhouse, flaunting precarious overlapping slides and tap slides in rapid succession. It sets itself as a formidable challenge, even if sitting at just a 14.6. Just ask my friend, they would know.
Oh! Okay. No!
In a shocking creative twist, playing all 10 charts that have dragon in the name or that originate from the Yakuza franchise, like a dragon, grants you the 6th and final key, the red key. Despite being a 14.8, Flame Frost was only cleared a single time on one life by non-RJ. This doesn't necessarily mean the chart is harder than Chuten. Chuten had the benefit of being shown before Kaleidoscope, which means that people didn't have to sight read it. Perhaps people weren't playing much that day, or it was just difficult enough for people to have trouble sight reading it, and I wouldn't blame them. Flame Frost is fiercely complex, with one of the most outrageously dense combination of tap swipes, spins, jumps, and a final trill capable of killing a small Victorian family. It is a true no prisoners held chart. And following the clearing of Flame Frost, the popular international player TRG would post a shocking video. Upon clearing all 6 courses and obtaining their fragments, the Master Key is obtained, along with a notice to the player indicating a lack of any further courses to be completed, and so Kaleidoscope, for now, is put to rest. On the 11th of July 2025, 7's Ref Area 4 released, revealing to be a whopping 2,000 kilometers to complete, the highest kilometer count in the game's history. And at the end of those 2,000 kilometers laid a true nightmare. Despite being a 13+, Amarista is a chart with a disgusting use of metric modulation, polyrhythms, and time signature changes, including a 2-3-4-5-6 and 2-3-4-5-7 polyrhythm for the ending sequence alone. RN, on a Q&A livestream hosted by TRG, said the following.
Okay, what inspired me to incorporate the kind of irregular rhythm patterns in your songs? Fun. I just love to see people suffer. My players, ever since we have X notes, people just get lousy with rhythms. So when I get the chance to write something rhythmically hard, I do my best. Hold on, TRG is cooking. Oh shit, he got it! Let's go! Let's go! Come on, let's...
Not a single player managed to reach AAA rank on the first day. Being a sequel to Worlds and Loneliness, Worlds and Black Box is an unforgiving power check. Extremely dense slide sections, the jacks, the trills, it has a bit of everything. And that everything is really fast, including an ending that brought the community to its knees. Available immediately after the Prism Tower is Error. Because Error isn't unlocked from an area, the established rules do not apply. The first track is a random perfect challenge from any of the Kaleidoscope areas. The second track is a random final boss from any of the gates, including the Prism Tower. And this is already one hell of a course, being a pool that the players have had the least experience with so far. However, the final track... a master chart with a scribbled name, difficulty, composer, and chart designer, and has an ominous 2-minute 30 countdown to its ending. And upon reaching the end of the timer, in the collection customization menu, all options are replaced with glitched panels filled with the phrase "Go find the last hope" and a small message at the bottom reading "Surely the bear knows." But what is that error message? A problem has been detected and 7's Ref EXE has been shut down to prevent damage to your world. If this is the first time you've seen this stop error screen, please replay the song. If the screen appears again, follow these steps. Check to make sure every gate is open and each world is properly connected to 7's Ref. If this is a new connection, ask your hardware or software manufacturer for any 7's Ref updates you might need. If problems continue, 7's Ref will be automatically destroyed and rebuilt. Error code. This message ends in countdown from 10 seconds. So surely, all you have to do is go back into Kaleidoscope and replay the song.
選べるですらしないんだけど。でもなんかさ、エンブレムなくなってる。今度はフラグメントが表示されてない。ないよ。
But now, the error portal is gone, and all the gems you have obtained have vanished and cannot be obtained again. Surely the bear knows. If only you could talk to the bear. A line account named Unknown with Acid as a profile picture appears. Sending her the 7th gate prompts her to remember the 7th gate in 7's ref, which is forbidden to be opened and leads to a world unknown to her. Suggesting use of the master key, Acid successfully opens the door, but is unable to access it because the connection on the other side seems to be severed. The error message links to a page on maimai.dxnet with an input field for an error code to help restore the link between 7's ref and the world behind the 7th gate. Entering the error code from the crash message shows a progress bar, requiring 3 million points of progress, or rather, 3 million fragments. This bar increases by an amount equal to the player's number of cleared charts, plus the number of charts cleared in their maimai finale data. Once the condition is fulfilled, another error appears, saying that the gate within the 7th world is broken, and that the back door is being activated as an emergency measure.
今こんな感じですね現状。あと1分20何秒。うるさい。俺あと3秒。俺あと2秒。始まった。やばい。あ、やばい。なあ音楽聞こえる音楽聞こえる音楽聞こえる。じゃあもういける？いけるんじゃね？まだ映すとこは一応。待って待ってなんかまだワンチャンなんかあるかもしれない。状態変わった。あ本当にデラックス。うるさいの誰だこれ。マスターって書いてあったから多分もうできるんだと思うよ。
The forbidden 7th gate opens, revealing its first track. With the transition of maimai Deluxe, the charts were separated by their major versions due to the standard or pre-deluxe charts lacking touch notes and EX notes. Being PRiSM's mascot song, PRiSM Rhythm is not a standard chart, but this one is. And after that, Believe the Rainbow, Pandora Boxx's bonus track, as a deluxe chart. And finally,
みんなお待たせしました。
After Pandora was produced initially as a bonus track in the original maimai All Perfect collection 5 years prior, quietly released in the wake of the Last Hope livestream. And as much as I'd like to talk about this chart, there's really only one thing that needs to be said about it. For a 14.2, it is deceptively slow. With a low BPM, it allows the chart to introduce some very strange patterns, as well as some familiar ones. The Last Samurai inspiration is very strong here, but never in maimai's history have we seen a trill quite like this before. While the game is no stranger to decelerating trills, it is fair to say nobody wasn't surprised by this. The Card Maker is a card printing cabinet introduced with Sega's other rhythm game, Ongeki. For maimai, the Card Maker can print DX passes, which is supposed to either boost tour member levels or give extra time in the game's freedom mode. However, in this case, upon entering the portal again, you're presented with the error track. But what happens next is nothing short of magical.
Kaleidoskopics. Kaleidoskopics.
ビッグの役割ですかあんたっすね
KALEID is one hell of a final boss to gander at. Its pure note density in trills, tap swipes, slides, and their ungodly combinations make this a formidable final challenger. Jack, the lead director for KALEID, explains that the intention was to create a new speed ceiling for the series, using the BPM as a benchmark. And this is a nightmare all the way up to the ending, which should just speak for itself. And it was only at this point that people found out why this song never shows your progress. Campaigning the pack, Non was the first player to clear the first half of Kaleidoscopic's remaster, with Yoshi following soon after. KALEIDSCOPE is not only maimai's third 15, but maimai's very first long song, and first song to introduce touch holds outside the center of the screen. This is also not 100 lives, this is 100 DX lives, where you can only not lose life if you hit a critical perfect, a 2-frame window. Greats, goods, and misses lose 10, 20, and 50 life respectively, which means that if you miss twice, you are kicked out of the course. All players immediately gave up upon this revelation, with news that the conditions were to be relaxed tomorrow. The next day, Ramiria, Non, and Yoshi led the breakthrough efforts on the second half. The second half of KALEIDSCOPE is easily the hardest thing maimai has offered to date, offering an onslaught of patterns the game hasn't come close to touching before. Notably, the most aggressive breakjack in the game's history, the game's most violent rendition of Truck, and what is quite possibly the most difficult ending sequence to any maimai chart ever. Jack stated that he wanted to unify the endings of all difficulty levels with a long hold note to create a specific feeling of relief or tension. I'm glad his wishes came true. I put up bad ideas like, let's unify the end of all difficulties with a hold to give that did I do it feeling. Zai admitted that his first draft of the song was fueled by malice and contained rhythms that would be nearly impossible to play. Because the remaster was built by directly converting the song MIDI data to game notes, the song was revised multiple times. And this sounds insane, however the design intention was not for everyone to clear it, but to create heroes out of the few dozen people who could. And eventually, a hero was born. With the power of the past memories of the old city, collective fragments of the wanderers and other characters, Acid is successful in the battle against the PRiSM administrator, preventing the reset of 7's ref and all of its memories. Seven's ref is left destroyed, and they are left to scoop up the rubble and clean up the fragments, but they welcome repairing it together, free from their past. In a sense, the introduction of maimai DX was a decision made that left a lot of things in the past that would have been forgotten. The destruction of the old order wasn't means to an end, but liberation. For the players before the cabinet, Kaleidoscope represented something far more grounded, but equally magical. In their interviews, the development team didn't call it a puzzle or a challenge, they called it a festival. Note designer Safta reflected on the event as a shared extraordinary experience between the creators watching the live streams and the players fighting on the front lines. For the development team themselves, they find it to be a form of new history. The development team wasn't the only team that pushed the mark. Tsukishima, the vocalist of Refrain, pushed past her limits and went through intense practice to hit the high notes. Kaleidoscope was designed to push everyone, not just the players, but the designers, developers, and composers to their absolute limits. Because beyond the charts and the code, only the music remained to speak for the journey that everyone had taken together.